glad to have the Isaacs with us today, and we're here in Gadsden, Alabama. They're at our Gold City gathering, and we're here with Lily and Becky and Sonya, and
the best part of the Isaacs.
The best part.
Who needs a bin?
That's
we were
right.
Thinking.
That's true. But so tell us about what's going on with the Isaacs right now. Where are y'all in your illustrious career? I know there's lots of things going on with your Opry performances, and you just got through helping the Opry celebrate 100 years.
Yes,
I saw that was pretty cool. So tell us kind of what's going on in the life of the Isaacs.
Well, we're staying busy. We're doing a lot of sessions and things. We're touring, and we're also playing the Opry a couple times a month. Since they made us members, we've tried really hard to do it a few times a month in addition to touring. And so, but we love being at the Opry, and that's just like, it feels so amazing to get to sing and be backstage with all the artists. So we're doing that quite often. And
I wanted to tell them what Dan, who's the general manager of the Opry, the night that we got inducted, we were so excited that we said, what do we have? We went in his office and we said, okay, so now that we're Opry members, what do we need to do to continue to be Opry members? What's the protocol? You know what he said? Show up. That's all he said.
He said you're already doing it.
Yeah, he
Just
said you're already
keep
doing it.
showing
Show up.
I love how you just nonchalantly, well, when they made us Opry members.
That was a big deal. It really was.
That's a huge
But
deal.
just staying busy doing a lot of different things. We've had a little bit of a relaxed touring schedule this year, which has been nice for us to take a breather and be home more. And last year we did 2 albums, one that hasn't come out yet, and the Praise and Worship album that came out a few months ago. And so we're kind of supporting that and doing a lot of radio and interviews and things for that. So, just things you're doing and, just staying busy.
Speaking of home, we're most people wouldn't know this, but we live on the same side of town, the same side of Nashville, but we don't ever see each other.
I know.
I see Ben quite a bit, actually,
You'd
because
think
his studio's across the street from Daywin, where my wife works, and so I see Ben every now and then.
I'm
when
sorry.
I go over there.
We apologize.
Don't you eat out as much as we do? I mean, we ought to see you at least at restaurants or something.
I know.
Walmart,
especially as much as you
Kroger.
eat.
Wow.
Oh, that was nice, wasn't it?
That
That
was-
was a shot across
Thanks,
the room
Josh.
right there.
Appreciate that.
No, that's no better than
No,
that.
but I guess we're touring, y'all are touring. It's just everybody's on different schedules. But anyway, I understand how nice it is to be at home more. We've done the same thing this year. Gold City's cut back quite a bit, and so we've, I was telling Jeff Easter last week, we had him on the podcast, and I said, when I was younger, I didn't care how many dates we worked. Or, you're young and you're ambitious, and you just love it. But the older you get, the more that you value your family time and home time and things like that. So, are y'all working on a new album or anything like that?
We've got one in the bank. We're waiting for the right label and all that to release that. But we may actually go back in the studio and do another record of like songs that we've written and stuff like that. So
It's been a while since we've done like where we just specifically wrote the record. We've done some cover songs records, but we haven't written for it. So
Now, Becky, you've got a solo record.
I do have a solo record.
That just
it came
won.
out.
Did it win?
It did not win, but it was nominated for a Grammy. Yeah,
Okay.
and the whole thing is a blur. It took me 3 years to make the record, and I wanted to do it with Guitar Heroes, and so I would catch one of my Guitar Heroes as they was passing through Nashville, and we would just go in and just play it, and then we built the track around all of that, and then most of my Guitar Heroes sing as well, and I'm like, well, I can't have them just play and not sing, so then it evolved into a lot of just friends of mine singing on the record, and people hear me sing with my family all the time, so I wanted to sing with other people just to hear what the voices blending would sound like. And
She
so
was tired of us.
I am tired of them. So anyway, it took me 3 years to make it, and finally in October of 2022, 3 years later, we go to release it, and then it's out, and then 6 weeks later I have my car accident and wasn't really able to promote it or do anything with it. And so I really didn't make it for anyone but me. I made it because I needed something to express myself, to prove that I could. And I know that sounds crazy. People are like, you've done this your whole life. What do you mean? But that's a whole nother story. But I always struggled with, did God call me, or did the family call me, because I grew up in a family that played music. And so I needed to express myself the way it just naturally would come out without being told what to sing and to play. And so it was a very personal record for me. And then the accident happens, and I had no idea all these years the title is Songs That Pulled Me Through the Tough Times. That's kind of how my life would be. And I remember getting a letter. I was in the hospital. I broke my legs. A gentleman hit me head on, and he lost his life that day and broke both of my legs and my ribs. And I was in a wheelchair for several months and couldn't walk and couldn't even put weight on my legs. It was a very crazy time. I started walking finally on February the 1st, and then we went on tour with Reba March 9th. And so I spent all of that tour in rehab, 18 months in rehab, learning to walk again and getting my legs to where I can actually just do what I do now. I do need some more surgeries in the knees. The knees are the next phase of healing. But I remember being in the hospital, and I received the sweetest letter from Dolly Parton, and it says, I can't imagine a world without you in it. And I know that you don't have time to promote your record, but it will always be there. Get well. And then here we are. I'm starting to walk and in rehab. Didn't even really promote the record at all, and I find out it's nominated for a Grammy. And so when I got the news of it, I started looking at my calendar, because I had this calendar that when you can't walk, your life completely changes. I mean, I went from being very independent to very codependent. I needed someone with me 24 hours. I could not even go to the bathroom by myself. Of course, I couldn't get in and out of bed or the wheelchair by myself. So I had this little calendar, and I would exit as I would get closer to the dates that I would walk again. And when I found out I was nominated for a Grammy, I went back and looked at that calendar, because that date really stuck with me. And that was the first day I walked again, 1 year to the date.
Wow.
So it was very sentimental for me to walk out on the red carpet and just take that step of faith. And during that time, the sound engineer that worked very hard on that record was very close to us, and he was like a brother to us. He traveled with us for 18 years. He was unfortunately murdered in his home 3 weeks after I was home from the hospital. And so we lost him, and he was a big part of this record. And so I felt like I was, Mark Capps honoring him.
That was tragic.
The whole experience. So it was an honor.
That's my favorite cut off of your record is your duet with Candy Christmas.
Oh, Master of the Wind. Isn't that a great song? Every song has a story, but that song was Bruce Watkins on the guitar, and he originally was with the Hemphills, and he actually played the guitar on that record, on that song that Joel Hemphill gave him when he was with the Hemphills. And so I love Joel's writing, and I've been I remember when we were 10, 11, 12 at Kempton watching Candy walk off the dress, and we thought she was a stinking queen.
You wanted to be her.
Not a stinking queen, but a pretty queen. Gorgeous. Like
stinking queen.
Stinking queen. Like, and that's Kentucky term. She was Miss America. And so, I had to have Candy. And she's now our pastor.
She's our pastor.
That's great. So when you said to prove that you could do it was that to yourself, to prove to yourself that you could do it as much as anyone else?
I think it's just the struggle of, music comes very easy to my sister, my brother, my mom, and my dad.
Yeah.
They knew what they wanted to do, and they execute what they hear in their head. And for me, it's always been a challenge to execute what I hear to come out, and to trust my gut, trust my talent. And I just struggled. I was like, God, had I not grown up in this family, what would I have done? I probably would have been in the medical field. And when you've got siblings that sing and you can sing too, you just do it. You don't question it. You just do it. And so here I am, always with stage fright, anxiety, nervous. I'd walk on stage and get second guessing myself, scared. And that was always my story, the stage fright thing. And then I'm laying in the hospital, and you have a lot of time to think, when you can't do anything but lay around. And the first night I had like this massive panic attack. I was in the hospital, and just felt like the world was closing in on me. And I realized I ain't going anywhere. I'm not doing anything. I'm not going anywhere. And I began to listen to podcasts and lift my spirits up. And the next morning I woke up, and it's Christmas time, and people are coming into the room, and they started bringing their guitars and singing to me.
Oh, wow.
And the room was full of music, and I was laying in the hospital bed crying because for the first time in my life, I was on the receiving end of music. I've always been the giver of music. We've always been the ones that go to the hospital, sing for the sick, sing for the funeral. And this time in my life, I actually felt what it was like to receive the music, and it was healing for me. And then I realized what I do really does matter, because if I did for somebody else what they just did for me, it's life-changing. And it was a full circle moment for me. And it took me getting that record out, going through what I went through, to not... I never resented music, but I never embraced it. I never fully said, okay, God, I surrender to my talent that you gave me, because I was always, like Paul talks about, you kick against the goad, I was harming myself by doing that instead of just accepting this was what God really had for me all along. And hopefully it didn't take that to bring me to this conclusion, but that is the beautiful part that came out of it.
Yeah, that's incredible. The thing that we don't realize as singers is what you just said. We take the value off of it so many times because it's just what we do. And to get to go into a church setting that has amazing worship where nobody knows who I am or knows who you are, and you can just worship, is one of the most fulfilling things in the world. And
well, everybody has a story at some point in their life. And I used to think, oh my goodness, you live from mountaintop to mountaintop. But I've survived other things. I had a car wreck in 91. I have no idea what happened. And then, I survived Crohn's disease, and I survived this and then the wreck. And I realized we live from glory to glory if we allow it to be. Yeah. If we allow ourselves to tell the story, then it's really God's grace, and you're living from glory to glory. And so that light shines, but you got to let it. And people really do follow your story. They really do follow what you do in music. Like Sonia and Mom, y'all have your own stories, but that was mine. And it's a revelatory moments in my life that have been the most impactful musically for me.
That's incredible.
That's awesome. So tell us, maybe Miss Lily, you can speak to, take us back to the beginning of the Isaacs and your family. And you've got an amazing story. You've written an incredible book that you share with audiences all across the country, and just kind of share your heritage and kind of where you came from.
Okay. Well, I've told this many times. I know a lot of people know who we are, but my mother and father are both Polish-Jewish Holocaust survivors. And when World War II broke out, September 1st, 1939 is when the Nazis came into the little town where they lived in Częstochowa, Poland, and they ordered all the people out of their homes. So my parents didn't know each other at the time. They're just the same hometown, and they went knocking from door to door to make sure everybody in their homes came out on the street. So my father had told me many years ago, when I was a child, I'd ask him questions. He said they called him all out on the street, his mother, his dad, his siblings, and the same with my mother, and they made the people lie down on the ground with their face down to the ground, their hands behind their head for hours to not move. Then they started separating families. They'd put one this way, one that way, and that's when the last time my father saw any of his family except for one brother. And we found out later on they were all murdered in a camp called Treblinka in northern Poland. They were gassed. Same story with my mother. She had her siblings at home with her mother and father, and she only had a sister and a brother left after the war. 2 years in concentration camps. So they really lived through a nightmare in history. They did. But thank God our American veterans are the ones that liberated them when they were in Dachau. And my mother always said this. Sonia has to say this because she says it better than anybody. My mom always said my daughters growing up would ask her questions, and she'd talk to them. She wouldn't talk to me about that. She'd talk to them. But I'll continue once you tell them. My mother said this all the time to my girls.
She would talk about their Liberation Day and what it was like, and she said, when those American soldiers busted through those concentration camp gates, they looked like angels from heaven. That's how she felt about our veterans, and
we honor them.
They were angels that rescued them. It's just so sad.
So basically that's where it started, and after the war was over, a lot of countries came together, including America, and set up these relief camps in Germany so that a lot of the people that were malnourished and sick could have a place to heal and rest. So my parents met in one of those camps in Munich, Germany, called a little town there, and they were there for a few months being healed back to health. That's how they met, and they fell in love, and they got married in Munich, Germany. So they decided to stay another year, and I was born in Munich, Germany at that French Army relief camp. Then they had an opportunity to come to America. My mother had an uncle that was already living in New York, and he sent for us to come. So I don't remember this. I was a year old, but my mom and dad said they got on this big ship, and my mother was very seasick, but my father had to hold me the whole time because she said she was always sick on that ship going to America. But we landed at Ellis Island, and my uncle took us under his wings and got my father got us an apartment in Bronx, New York, and my parents went to night school to learn English. My father got a job as a bread baker, and I remember as a little girl growing up that, I didn't know a whole lot about my parents' story, but they were very hardworking people. They wanted to be Americans, and they were proud of it. Trouble of it is, my father carried so much sorrow, never knew what happened to his family, that he started drinking heavily, and he became an alcoholic, which was sad because he'd come home from work every morning from the bakery drunk, and it just wasn't a good fit. But anyway, I wanted to reach out to him. I wanted to help him even being young because I knew he was sad in his heart, but I didn't know how to do it. And he passed away at the age of 69. He was a young man. But, growing up with that kind of background, you're thankful for what you do have. And, of course, I was raised in a Jewish home. I don't know if you're supposed to say that nowadays with all this anti-Semitism out in the world.
Say it proud.
It's really sad,
Yeah.
but I'm not ashamed of it. But
No.
growing up in a Jewish home, we didn't go to church. We went to synagogue, and we didn't learn about Jesus. We learned about God. And my parents were very proud that we were an American family, and it was just the way we lived. So I was always into music. I know this is taking a long time. I don't know how to get to it any quicker.
That's okay.
But I was always into music, and my mother was she was about 5'2", but she was something else, let me tell you. She'd dance around the house and sing songs from Broadway, and she was just something else. She was full of life. And we went to Broadway shows all the time, she and I did. So I got really interested in Broadway. So I told my mother, I said, Mom, I was probably about 15. I said, I want to be a Broadway actress. So she put me in singing lessons and acting lessons, and we thought that was going to be my future. Lo and behold, when I was in college, my roommate and I both had folk guitars. This was in the 60s, the hippie years, right?
Right.
So we had folk guitars in the dormitory of the college, right? And we'd sit and write our own songs, and we got invited to sing it to a party once in Long Island, and we went just for the heck of it, and we put on our hippie clothes and ironed our hair and tried to look authentic. Now listen, this is in the mid-60s, and this man came up to us and said, would you girls like to audition for Columbia Records? And we looked at each other and said, He was just a young man. We thought he was flirting with us, right? So he said, if you give me a number, I'll make the connection. And we didn't know whether we should or not, but we did. Well, wouldn't you know, about 2 or 3 weeks later, he calls my house. He said, I've set up that audition for you for Columbia Records, so-and-so date. You and your girlfriend just show up, and we'll have the audition. And we just screamed and yelled. It was the truth. So here we go, again, dressed up, and go to downtown, Columbia Records, walked in. There was a big, long table with about 7 or 8 men sitting around it, and he said, show us what you have. So we sang 3 of our original songs and walked out of that place with an album on Columbia Records.
Holy smokes.
That was
a
in
big deal.
1969. It was.
Because Bob Dylan was on the
Yes.
Columbia label. Johnny Cash was on the Columbia label. I mean, it was just that was a big deal.
I almost met Bob Dylan in Woodstock. Almost.
Wow.
He was within 2 arm lengths. But then we didn't have a cell phone, so I had no proof of it, but almost did.
So
but
that means you were.
She went to
you were at
Woodstock.
I was
yeah,
at
I
Woodstock.
picked up on
but
that.
she don't remember it.
Becky, I do. I remember
There were
it.
a
No.
lot of
Hey,
people there.
I went to the Woodstock Folk Festival, and we didn't stay long because you couldn't see anything. There were a million people there, and everybody was drunk, and Anyway, we left. But I did an apprentice one summer for acting at Woodstock Playhouse. So we lived there for 2 months. That was exciting.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So, my future was like that. Getting on, I'm trying to be hurry, so you have other questions. But we did a nightclub in Gertie's Folk City in Greenwich Village, my girlfriend and I.
How old were you at that time?
19.
Wow, okay.
And she and I landed a 6-week engagement at a little coffee house in Greenwich Village called Gertie's Folk City for 6 weeks. So naturally, I took a leave of absence from college. So my mom got mad at me. She said I'd never go back. I said I would, but I never did. But anyway, it was too big of an opportunity to not try, right?
Yeah.
So for 6 weeks, every night, we sang at this little coffee house. There was another band that sang there as well called the Greenbrier Boys, and they were from Kentucky.
Oh, boy.
I never heard a banjo in my life. Well, maybe on the Beverly Hillbillies on TV.
Oh, yeah.
But I never heard one live, right? So this band had an upright bass, bass, a mandolin, a guitar, and a banjo. And they sang all Kentucky hillbilly songs. It was kind of fascinating. But their banjo player was named Joe Isaacs. And the band leader, he got up every night and introduced the band. He said, "This is the only Jew boy that I know that plays the banjo from Kentucky." And I thought, oh, that sounds good.
Wow.
Because he wasn't. But
Yeah,
anyway,
he
with
had
a
the
name like
He
Isaacs.
had the name, yeah.
So we started dating, and then we, fell in love.
Yeah.
And when his band left, he came back to New York and lived there for about 6 months. And his father was a Pentecostal preacher. He is the baby child of 17 children in Kentucky.
Oh, wow.
You take the combination of where I grew up and where he grew up, it was a totally opposite
You were only
thing.
child?
No, I have a brother that's
brother.
5 years younger than
Okay.
I am. But I mean, our upbringings were
Yeah.
totally one end of the world to the other. But what we did have in common was music and things like that. So we got married, and then we had 3 amazing children. Ben was my first. Then Sonia, and then Becky.
Only 2 of
And
us are amazing. Though.
Wow.
They were
Wow.
born singing a song. They started singing. Which 2?
I don't know.
Well, she said 2 of
Yeah,
us.
I know,
That was
two.
I think
Might
it's the
be you and
2 that
Becky.
are here,
No.
and you. Well, maybe.
I mean 2 of the 3, and I'm not including myself. I'm just saying.
Oh, okay. So
Always a
you're being modest. I
competition.
see.
Yes.
But they loved music, and they'd pick up an instrument they liked. Sonya picked up the mandolin when she was 7. And her dad would show her some chords, and then she'd sing. And then Becky'd come along with the guitar. Ben started playing the upright bass, the electric bass at church, so he wanted to. So we just let them sing. And they were, 8, 9, and 11 when they did their first album, maybe even younger. So, what happened? I'll tell you this, and then I'll shut up. That's how it started, okay?
Wow.
We'd go singing in churches and places. We always get the little chipmunks up. The gospel chipmunks is
Yeah.
what they call them. And they'd sing harmony. They'd sing a song or two, and people loved it, but they got so bored traveling. They got to where they didn't want to do it. And I didn't know what to do because we were traveling every weekend, Friday and Saturday, and, so we did. And they didn't want to go. They'd rather stay home and do something at school. And so I had an idea. I said, let's take them in the studio and record them a cassette. Then it wasn't a CD, it was a cassette. And let them keep the money when they sell it.
There you
So
go.
that's what we did. We went in the studio one day. They cut 10 songs. And,
She's Jewish,
well, so are you.
There's going
Anyway,
to
she
be some
took
money.
a cut. Don't
exchanging
worry about
somewhere.
it.
No,
She took
I
a cut.
So once
Don't
they got
worry
the
about
CD,
it.
it's called the Little Gospel Chipmunks. No, the Isaacs Trio. I don't even know if it's on anything.
Isaacs Trio.
Anyway, that's what we call them. And so when the CD came out, when the
cassette
tape came out, we'd get them up on the stage or wherever we were, and they sang a couple songs. Well, then after the show, they go back to the merch table, and they'd sell those cassettes like they were on
Of
fire.
course they would.
And they
They
got
were
to keep
kids.
the money. So I'm just telling somebody that's how I got them to stay in the
Man.
singing industry. Anyway, that's the way it started.
It was just pure. What do you call that? Just when you you coax somebody to do something. Oh, what's
Yeah.
the
I don't
word?
know.
I can't think of it. You know what I'm talking about.
We'll get back with you.
Yeah, let me think about
we
that.
can edit that in.
been a
when we
long day.
figure out
Anyway,
what to
that's
do.
the way it all started.
I got you.
And
So
from
what
then
year-
on-
No, that's not the right word.
What year did you record the cassette?
If you were 7,
1980.
1980.
Yeah, something like
So the first time I ever heard you guys was at Fife, Alabama. Straight up now. You're not going to remember them, but the Mike and Pat Tidwell, the Tidwell family from they used to follow you guys around from Aniana, and they were into more of the mountain music. I was all into Gold City and cathedrals, but I was dating their daughter. I was 15. I couldn't drive, but if they would invite me to go, Cindy would invite me to go. Of course, yeah, I'm gonna go somewhere.
Yeah.
So that we came up there, and that would have been in '92,
Yeah.
probably. So I had never heard of you guys, and but I was blown away about how good. But y'all were young then too.
92, 17, 18. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that was and what was neat about that, Howard and Vestal were there that night. Because they're from, Vestal's born in Fife, lived in Fife. So,
How?
yep. And that gets back to another thing. I didn't really know, I was kind of ignorant. I grew up in gospel music, but I didn't really know Howard and Vestal because that was right before I really became, Gold City didn't start it or Cathedrals didn't start it, I didn't know what it was, or the Kingsmen. But that was it, man. And I remember that like it's yesterday with you guys on stage, and it's a neat deal.
Now, Sonia, you've kind of have an eclectic career of your own. You've toured with lots of great people like Vince Gill, and tell us kind of who all that you've worked on everybody's album, I'm sure, down through the years. Ricky Skaggs probably, and different people.
Worked with Ricky. Back in 2000, I released a solo album, country solo album on Disney's Lyric Street Records, which was their country label. And Vince Gill produced it. And, because of that, the record, we cut 2 records in that 6-year period where I was signed to them as a soloist. And, the singles did okay, but they weren't like breakthrough singles. But one thing it did give me was a lot of exposure in the country music world as a singer. And I started getting invitations to sing on a lot of people's records, and I can't even remember. I sang for Reba on Reba's record. That I'm gonna take that mountain. Mm-hmm. She had me come and sing that really, really, really high part that I almost couldn't reach. And apparently a few other people had tried to do it before, and she just wasn't happy with it. So there was extra pressure to do, to try to do it right. But then Dolly called. We sang on several of Dolly's records, and Trace Adkins and Dirk Bentley. I sang with him, Brad Paisley, we got to sing on Merle's more recently, and Don Williams. And, but a lot of, the journey was great. And I met so many wonderful people in country music and other artists that were kind of in my era, like Brad Paisley and Blake Shelton and all those kind of guys that we just became friends. And they asked me to sing with them, or I used to write with Keith Urban all the time, and, writing with them and singing with them, and met some great producers and stuff. So, it was a really cool time. And because of that, a lot of them started following the Isaacs music. And, when I returned back to the Isaacs and kind of hung up the country solo thing, a lot of the people had already found out who the Isaacs were and followed my career. And so we got to do a lot of wonderful things. And, even playing on the Opry and stuff, we've been doing that for 30 years. And that wasn't because of my country career. Right. But there are a lot of people like Mark Wills and different ones that play the Opry all the time that I knew back then. And so it's really neat, like Craig Morgan and all those artists that were in my age group, back when they were just coming out. So it's so great to see them all backstage. But, the Isaacs, we've gotten to do an amazing amount of stuff. We just did like 10-song backup session for Reba for last year for a record. And I don't know if she'll use all of them, but
and y'all just got off tour with
stuff.
Reba too.
We toured with Reba, and that was pretty awesome. It was like 7 weeks tour, and we opened for her and sang with her on stage. You have
to tell everyone, this is the best story you tell about Reba calling you when Becky was in the hospital, because we were getting ready to go on tour. Yeah. Becky was still in the hospital. We didn't know what to do.
Yeah, we were really concerned because it was one of the biggest opportunities we've.
Yeah, get better, Becky. Let's go.
She wasn't walking yet.
She was still, in the hospital, and it was like February, and we were supposed to tour with Reba March 9th, and we were doing new songs, and we had a lot of work to do on the show or the presentation we were going to do and all the stuff. And Reba was so sweet, and she called Becky when she was in the hospital, and she said, "Becky, I want you to know I've been praying for you, honey. And I just want you to know that I don't care if we have to get a forklift to get you up on that stage. I still want you to come out and sing on my tour."
Well, there you go.
But and she didn't need to, right?
She went on to tell her that, she had to sing in a cast once and, sit in a chair for most of the show. And so she, but she was very understanding. And thankfully, Becky was determined to walk and to do it quicker than what they said she would. And she did. And, she walked out on stage. She was limping, and we had her one of those electric scooters backstage to get around in the arenas and stuff. So, but Reba was just awesome. And we had prayer every night before we went on stage with a lot of the crew and the bands. And Reba came out a little bit. She would pray in her dressing room because she was always getting hair and makeup then. And her boyfriend Rex would come out and pray with us. And, it was a really special time and just unforgettable. Tour.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. So how the crowd, since you've been at the Opry and on tour with Reba, how have you been received by that crowd, the country music versus gospel music, or has there been any kickback from your gospel music fans to country? I mean, everybody been pretty accepting.
Most people most people were very accepting. I mean, there were maybe a few, maybe 1% that were, we don't believe you should be out there with Reba and touring. But we've already done, kind of crossover records, and the Isaacs American Face record that came out was, it was like kind of a secular record. It was Americana. It wasn't necessarily gospel, but the songs were good songs, and so
any backlash wasn't from the secular crowd; it was from the gospel crowd.
That's right.
Yeah,
and the secular crowd was amazing, and we would, with Reba, she's like, do a great set, and we tried to do like songs that we felt the audience would like, because it's a lot of pressure when you get up there and they don't know who you are. A lot of them did, but. And so we wanted them to enjoy it and not be too foreign when we get done with our set and here comes Reba doing 90s country. So we tried to do some 90s stuff, but we ended with It Is Well With My Soul. She wanted us to do It Is Well With My Soul, and like it was such a moving experience for those people that, some of them were sitting there that had never been to church in their lives, and that had been drinking all day and sitting there, and then tears rolling down their face and just not even understanding what the Holy Spirit was that was touching their lives. And so only great feedback from the country world, and, just a very small percentage of people in the gospel world that just, they didn't understand
there's those
what
that
we were doing.
feel like if you can't do it in a church. Now, there's a lot bigger world out there outside of the walls of the church that they don't really think about very often. And
I was going to say, there was a lady came up to me after one of our concerts, and she was crying. Yeah, with Reba. And she found me as I was walking off the stage, and she was in one of the bleachers, and she came over and she said, "Ma'am, that song without music, whatever you did," she said, "that just made me, I couldn't take my breath. I couldn't even breathe." And I didn't ask her any questions. I said, "Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it." She said, "Oh, it moved me like nothing else."
Wow.
I think that's why God placed us in a place like that.
And the Opry too.
Yeah.
The Opry too. I mean, the Opry's been so welcoming to us. For 30 years we played the Opry before they made us members, and always say, they didn't have to buy the cow, they were getting the milk for free, but they bought the cow and made us members. And we had prayer in our dressing room so many times for, with other artists that are sick or have family members that are going through something, or the staff will come in and pray if they're sick or going through surgery. And it's just amazing because they just let us be us.
Yeah.
And they're very inclusive of that. And so we just feel so honored, and we feel like that's a mission field for us too.
Absolutely. And who's to say that somebody sitting out there at the Opry that hears an Isaacs song and they go back and find you guys on a streaming platform or whatever and hear a gospel song and they're going to be touched by that. So, I mean, it definitely is a mission field.
Hey guys, I want to take just a second and let you know about a very neat tour that we have scheduled for later this year called the Hits and Heritage Tour. It's Gold City along with our friends the Hoppers and the fantastic Joseph Habedank. It's going to be a great night and tour of incredible songs. It's called Hits and Heritage for a reason. We are staging the hits of all the songs from, well, not all, it'll take forever for us to do that, but the Gold City songs that you all know so well, the Hopper songs that you know so well, the Joseph Habedank songs that you know so well, not just from Joseph's solo career, but also from his career with the Perrys and singing with other groups. Joseph has had a very long career in this industry. You're going to love this tour. So be watching for the cities that we'll be coming to, and we hope to see you there. Do this for me. So go back to, 92 we said, from that church in 5. Walk me through what happened as far as, because y'all were, what year did you actually on the road full time? This is what we do. Was it always that way?
No. So we were touring when we were in school, just more tri-state, local, Kentucky, Ohio, and Indiana. We lived in Ohio at the time.
Yeah.
And we got signed to the Eddie Crook Company around 1990 or something like that, or 89. Released a couple records, but in 92 we moved from from Ohio to Tennessee, East Tennessee, and it was on our move there actually remember riding in Ben's truck as we were just making the final trip. We wrote the song From the Depths of My Heart driving, and that became our first number one song. And then we started getting more national attention with the charting. And then I Have a Father Who Can was a number 2 song.
That's my favorite Isaac song.
Really?
That's
Oh, that's
that
such a
song,
good
too.
one. Y'all should cut it. That would be great.
Well, y'all
That'd be
come
cool.
help us.
Yeah, of course. But that's kind of where we started, getting more national attention and just, growing our audience and doing bigger and better things, moving up to bigger buses, newer buses with trailers.
So we were talking to Jeff Easter about this. It's so 92, 91, 92, 93, that's when the Gaither thing started to hit too, as far as y'all got involved with that pretty early.
Well, we did, but it wasn't. When did we start getting involved with the Gaither?
We started getting involved with the Gaithers around 91.
Yeah.
Because I met my husband in 91.
Yeah.
And we married in 94. And I remember doing the very first, we did A Father Who Can around 92.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it all was kind of hitting at the same time.
Yes. And
Yeah.
then
that was the first video that we were on.
Okay.
But then through the years, we did all the videos, and then we started touring heavily with him around 2000.
Yeah.
And then we did that for about 16, 17 years.
Yeah. That'll jumpstart everything too with what was
It
going on
was.
back then.
that took us internationally, honestly. And we started getting invited to Norway and Faroe Islands and other countries we never heard of before, Ireland. It was awesome.
It was a different world back then. Now everything's instant gratification. Everything is on social media.
Oh yeah.
And we've had many conversations with Bill Gaither about this, but Bill would say that when he was a child, he would mow the yard, he would save up money to get a quarter to just be able to buy the single from Hovey Luster, whoever he was wanting to buy it from. And then 6 months later, he'd have enough money, a quarter, to be able to buy a picture just to see what they look like. And then 6 months later, he would actually want to see what they were wearing the next time on an album 6 months later. And now, your whole wardrobe is in a week. You see it's instant gratification. But we were actually on tour with Bill when Jake Hess and Vestal Goodman and Ben Spear and
the
some of
legends.
those pioneer, the cathedrals were still doing stuff, and George. And so we got in a very good time, just because of the fact that the world has changed a lot in the last 5 or 6 years.
It's changed a lot. And then that whole Gaither, with all that he was doing with the videos,
That's right.
was
The TV was
broadening
big, yeah.
the audience so much. And now it's kind of come back because there's not as much of that. So it's interesting to see how the times. But it's neat that it hit with y'all whenever it was kind of start. I remember going to BJCC and there was 18,000 people there for a Gaither concert.
Yes.
It's crazy, and y'all were probably there. So.
We did that tour for a long time.
Yeah. What else have you got coming up? Is there anything you want to talk about that we need to let the people know? Is there anything, since Ben didn't come in, is there anything we want to talk about Ben that would be embarrassing?
We don't want to talk.
Oh, the Brothers of the Heart.
Yeah, Ben's,
Yeah, I was going to ask him about
yes,
that.
Ben is actively involved in a quartet that he helped start probably about 2019 or so, called Brothers of the Heart. It's Jimmy Fortune from the Statler Brothers, Mike Rogers, and Bradley Walker, all amazing singers.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a beautiful sound when they sing together, and people are loving
She
it.
did, yeah.
They're selling out shows everywhere that they book them. They're not doing a whole lot of shows, maybe like 10 a year, but they're selling them out, and they've already made 3 CDs and DVDs, and they're doing another one. And so it's kind of like a good little side hustle for Ben. He's really enjoying it, and he doesn't have to sing or be told what to do by girls at all. So he really likes that. But they're awesome.
does.
They're awesome.
They're really incredible. The Jimmy doing, is it Crying?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I love his voice. Yeah.
That was
so good.
that I heard him do that and it was over, man. It was like, oh my
all
gosh.
so
Because
good.
you don't think about that type song that Jimmy would do, and what they're doing is showing so much versatility and what they can actually do. It's to me, it's incredible.
They are, and they have a great way of finding that song that fits each of their voices. Like Bradley Walker has that beautiful, rich, deep sounding voice. And, they'll give him Just As I Am.
Keyed in the right.
And Lord, it's just so touching. So It's
Yeah.
working. It's
That's
working for
awesome.
him. We're gonna start Sisters of the Womb, but
So, is there a next generation? I know all of you have kids, and
yeah.
yours has already been out some, and so yeah, I saw him. So
Levi travels full time with the Isaacs now.
Okay.
He plays electric and sings. My daughter, she's more into the not into the music side of
Yeah.
things right now, but she did travel for a long time. She can sing. Ben's got a daughter that sings beautifully, but she sings at church. And then
Yeah.
Sonia's kids are super talented. They all hear parts. They all sing. They all can, but they're little, and as they spread their wings,
See
like
what
Levi,
happens.
I'm like, Levi, honey, are you sure you want to do this for a living? Like how hard we've worked our whole life,
Yeah.
but he's convinced it's what he wants to do. There's no turning
and
back.
Y'all
Yeah.
kind of paved the way.
We have,
So,
and I see it. I'm not going to be able to leave him $1 million, but probably when I die, but I can give him a platform to
Yeah.
learn on and spread his wings that way. So
we went earlier today and actually did an episode with Tim Riley and Danny. He's doing good. He can't. The strokes have affected him. He can't get up and move a lot anymore. But it was a great time just to hear some of those top stories of what he did for Danny. And so anyway, hopefully there'll be some Uris or something going on out there. So no.
Yeah. So my oldest is 13, and he has kind of like the whole pop licky type voice where he can do all the runs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And he can play guitar already and drums and different things. He doesn't practice them. He's into sports right now, so it's kind of not really on his mind. And then my little Gatlin, he's 9. He has this most gorgeous, rich tone, and he's learning to do all the runs and licks too. But Gatlin's he's also learning to play instruments, and he's writing songs. And then my daughter Evia, she's 8, and Gatlin's just an amazing harmony singer. Both of the boys are. Evia's learning; she's starting to hear it. She's 8, and she's writing songs. Like she'll write a couple of songs a day. She'll get on the piano and try to pick out the notes and just write words. And I'm like, and I have to ask her, like, Evia, did you write that song, or is that somebody else's song that you just rewrote the words to? She said, no, I wrote it.
Wow.
And that's how good they are. And
How
I'm
old is
like,
she?
she's only 8.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. So, and she sings beautifully too. So I'm thankful. And my husband's a singer and songwriter, and
Incredible.
thank you. So, they got it from both of us, I guess, just a gift to perform and sing. And so I want to encourage them and to, help them, but I don't want to force them to, because that can be hard to can push them in the wrong direction.
What
sometimes.
a lot of people don't understand too, there's a lot of heartache that comes with this.
There is,
That with my boys, I've always I don't really, because there's a lot that people don't understand that goes into what we do, and
hard.
sometimes you just want them to live a normal life. So
whatever
happens.
In some businesses that you can pursue, you're kind of in charge of your destiny. The harder you work, the more you're rewarded. In this business, it has everything to do with if somebody's in a good mood when they listen to your song, or what one person's opinion is of your song that consults 50 radio stations that says you should play the song or not, or, it's hit and miss, and it's all God. God is in control of everything. We know that, but there's so much about it that is just really timing and luck, and just relying on other people's generosity, or stamp of approval, or if somebody says something bad about you, especially nowadays with social media, like you can lose a career in a day. You can lose a career in a day. You can also make a career in a day.
Right.
So, do what you're good at, and don't give up if you get tired. If it gets hard. People that ask us all the time, do you have any advice? Just, keep on doing it, and the cream will always rise to the top. It may take longer for some than others, but you just keep doing it and enjoy it. Enjoy the journey.
I was just going to say it's also an industry where, unfortunately, the consumer oftentimes expects it for free. They don't see the hours and hours and hours and money you spent to write a song, to record the song, the debt you go in for them to have it. Yet this is one of the few industries where they just want to nowadays get it for free, and no one else goes to work all day and works for free.
Right.
So when it becomes your bread and butter, when your ministry becomes your bread and butter, you get very codependent on everybody's behavior and how the world turns, and so it's a hard industry to be in. And honestly, when you're in the ministry side of it, I think it's a little bit more difficult than artists that go out and don't do it for ministry, because then there's that weight of responsibility of, are you handling the ministry and the business side of it proper.
Yeah.
There's a big responsibility that God expects out of us when it is labeled as a ministry. Whereas, you got a Beyonce or someone out there, it's all about ticket sales and doing whatever. And, people will pay $200-300 for a seat for that.
Oh, yeah.
But when a ministry comes to town and the same cost of getting, they don't want to support it. The ministry should be free. And so you're always juggling that, being a good steward with God blessed you with,
Right.
but also how are you going to get from point A to point B? And so, but music is a hard thing. And I've always just wanted my kids to have that choice, and they've clearly chose the path they want. And I don't see Levi ever turning away from it. Like,
No.
he's so into it, and it's his thing. So I support him. He does. He's got a solo career, and he's on his second solo record right now. And you just got to bless your kids with, okay, we're here. We support you.
Absolutely. If that's what you're going to do,
That's
I'm
what
going
you
to get
wanna
behind
do.
you and
That's
do
right.
it. So even though I've tried to talk you out of it.
Yeah. But in this job, you love what you do, but the older you get, it does get more challenging to do it at the level that you do it. After my car accident, it's very hard for me to sleep in a bunk. It's very hard for me to do a lot of steps and the things that go along with traveling, getting in an airplane, sitting for hours with my knees. And so, but God gives you grace to carry the cross that is yours to carry, and whatever that looks like, until God says we're done with you, then he gives you the grace to continue.
And he's definitely not done with you guys. So let's continue, okay?
Right back at
backing up
you.
right now. Continue on.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. And I know I'm going to let y'all get probably
perked
got
up.
pre-show stuff to do. We
do whatever women do. We ain't got a clue about that before.
No, we
concert, so.
don't. We
You
don't.
have no clue what we go through to look decent.
But we thank you for being with us, and looking forward to hearing you guys tonight. And
Thank
y'all want to go see the Isaacs? What's the best way for them to? You're on all the socials.
Social media and all
Social media, just the Isaacs. Is it Isaacs Official?
On Instagram and
Instagram. Yeah, the Isaacs on Facebook, and theisaacs.com. Also, if I could mention the Isaacs Foundation, we bless Holocaust survivors and orphans in Israel.
Absolutely.
And lone soldiers, and we've helped a lot of people since the attacks on Israel. October 7th was just a horrible
That was terrible.
day, and affected the country so much, who was just finally seeing the light after COVID, closed down the country for years with tourism. And so, and then this happened, and now they're back at war, for the last couple years. And so they have great need over there. And we love Israel because it's Jesus' homeland, and also because it's the homeland of the Jewish people that was promised to them. And we just absolutely love Israel. So if you're interested in helping us bless Israel, it's the isaacsfoundation.org. And Isaacs is ISAACS, the isaacsfoundation.org. And we also do a lot of work in America helping hungry Americans and people that are struggling and going through hard times. And so you can choose how you want to give your gift when you go on our website. But check it out and make a tax-deductible donation and help us help so many people. We're very honest with our the money that flows through our hands. We're very responsible. We don't keep 1 cent more than what we absolutely have to spend for administrative costs. So it's going to a good cause. And if God said, I'll bless those that bless my people. He told us that in the Word. And he truly has blessed us so much, and we feel like he's favored us since we started doing that. So be a part of the blessing and receive the blessing from God's Word. So God bless Israel, and God bless you guys. Thank you for having us on here.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.